Hi, I'm Jeffrey Schmidt at Jeffrey Schmidt Music, and today I have a video for you that compares and contrasts and gives my experience on the comparison between the two Shure microphones, the SM58 and the Beta58. If you haven't seen it, and if you're looking for audio samples, please go see my video that is a shootout between these two microphones. The link to that will be in the description below. So let's start with the similarities between these two microphones. They're both dynamic microphones, meaning they're not condenser microphones, they're not powered microphones. They're both handheld microphones, and by that I mean they're easy to hold in your hand, and also Shure makes an effort in these microphones so that rubbing noises on the handle of the microphone will be lessened, and I think that in both cases Shure has done a good job of that. They are both under $200 or euros, and they are both quite durable. Let's move on to the differences. So what are the differences between these two microphones? Well, first of all, there's the polar pattern. The Shure SM58 has a cardioid polar pattern, whereas the Beta58 has a supercardioid polar pattern. If you don't know what that means, please look it up. But basically it means that, in short, the null of the SM58 is right behind the microphone, whereas the Beta58 has two null spots, which are at 30 degrees to the left and the right behind the microphone. Moving on to the frequency response, those you can look up as well on the internet. But what I will say, just to sort of summarize, is that in terms of the lower mids, meaning around 200 Hertz, 300 Hertz, 500 Hertz, the SM58 has a bit more in those frequencies. Whereas, talking about the upper mids, the Beta58 has a bit more in those frequencies. The upper mids are more like 2000 Hertz, 3000 Hertz, 5000 Hertz, 6000 Hertz. So that's sort of a summary of how they sound different, but of course if you want to hear them, like I said, go to my video in the description. In terms of price, for many years now they have been selling the SM58 for around $100 or euros, and they've been selling the Beta58 for around $150 or euros. And then another thing to know, technically speaking, is that there's a difference in output level between the two. The output level of the SM58 is a little bit lower, and the level of the Beta58 is a little bit higher. The difference is about 5 decibels. And so if you're using cheaper preamps that don't have as much of an output, that may be a point in the plus column for the Beta58 for you, especially if you tend to sing softly. Moving on to the in-use category. First, it must be said that the differences between these two mics are not enormous in terms of sound quality, in terms of the frequency response, in terms of how they are in use, in terms of how they sound. The differences are not huge, although they are there and audible. Secondly, and this comes down to my preference, but I think many would agree, that in a big mix, meaning a mix with a lot of instruments, it can get muddy pretty fast. So I definitely prefer the Beta58 in that case, both live and for recording in the home studio. And for a little mix, well, that's more a question of taste. Some people might find that the Beta58 is not flattering enough because it doesn't have quite as much bass or oomph or lower mids, depending on how you say it. So for spoken word or for a singer-songwriter situation, some may prefer the SM58, but I think that if you're in a band, it is likely that you would definitely prefer the Beta58 in most circumstances, at least at the level of the sound of the mic in terms of cutting through the mix. And lastly, that brings me to the issue of feedback. Now, with a supercardioid pattern, the Beta58 is supposed to have a tighter polar pattern and is supposed to help with rejection of feedback in more difficult circumstances. However, in my experience, and I usually do singer-songwriter gigs, just usually voice and guitar, something simple. I don't usually play with a band. In my experience with feedback, I've had a harder time with the Beta58. And the reason I think that is because the Beta58 has more upper mids, more treble frequencies, which can more easily, in certain circumstances, lead to feedback. So I've found that in order to push the level of my amp, I'm often feeling like I should go with the SM58 in order to lessen the feedback that I'm getting, even if, in terms of sound, I really would prefer to use the Beta58. So there you have it. That's my short video comparing and contrasting the SM58 to the Beta58 in live situations and in recording situations. Once again, if you want to hear the difference between the two on my voice in a singer-songwriter situation, go to the link in the description. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much and have a great day.